In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the while loops in Python. We use while loops to repeat a block of code multiple times. For example, let's say we want to print a number from 1 to 5. A poor way to do this is writing a code like this. Print 1, then print 2, print 3, print 4, and print 5. Now, why is this a bad approach? Well, what if we want to print a number from 1 to 1 million? We're going to write 1 million lines of code, each line printing a number. This is where we use while loops. So we will start off by declaring a variable like I and set it to our initial number. Let's say 1, then we type while, and here we type a condition. So once again, we can use our comparison operators. Let's say I less than or equal to 5. As long as this condition is true, then the code that we write inside of the while block will get executed. So here we type a colon and press enter. Now we have a block of code. In this block we print I, and then we need to increment I by 1. So we set it I to I plus 1. If you don't do this, I will always be 1, and this block of code will get executed indefinitely. It will never terminate. Basically, our program will continue running until it runs out of memory. So in the first iteration, I is 1 is less than 5. So Python is going to execute this block of code. It will print 1 on the terminal, then I becomes 2. Then the control moves back over here. So Python evaluates this condition, 2 is less than or equal to 5. So the condition is true, and once again, Python is going to execute this block one more time. In the second iteration, we're going to see 2 on the terminal, and I will become 3. So this will continue until this condition is no longer true. Let me show you. So let's run this program. Now we see the numbers from 1 to 5. So this is the beauty of while loops. I can easily change 5 to 1000. And by the way, we're separating these digits by using an underscore. This makes my number more readable. We don't have to add this, but it just makes our code more readable. So let's run the program. Now we see the number 1 to 1000. It's much easier than 1000 lines of code, each printing a number. Now let me show you something really cool. So I'm going to change this to 10. Now instead of printing I want to print an expression. So I'm going to multiply I by a string as asterisk. Now you might be confused here, because earlier I told you that in Python we cannot concatenate a number to a string. But here I am using the multiplication operator. This is different. We can multiply a number by a string, and this will repeat that string based on the value of that number. So if I is 1, we're going to see 1 asterisk. If I is 5, we're going to see 5 asterisks. Let me show you. So when we run this program, we see this triangle shape because in the first iteration, I is 1. So we see 1 asterisk. In every iteration, I is incremented by 1. So we see 1 extra asterisk. Now finally, in the last iteration, I is 10, and we see 10 asterisk on the terminal. So you've learned about 3 types of data in Python. We have numbers, which can be integers or floats. We have booleans and strings. These are what we refer to as primitive or basic types in Python. Now in Python, we have a bunch of complex types as well. These complex types are very useful in building real applications. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about lists. Use lists whenever we want to represent a list of objects, like a list of numbers or a list of names. Let me show you. So I'm going to declare a variable called names. and set it to the list of names. So here we add square brackets to represent a list. Now we can add one more object inside this list. In this list, we add a bunch of names like John, Bob, Mosh, Sam, and Mary. So we separate these elements using a comma. Now let's print our list. So print names, then run. It comes out exactly like how we wrote it. Now we can also get individual elements in this list. For example, if you want to get the first element in this list, here we type a pair of square brackets, and inside the square brackets we type an index. The index of the first element in this list is 0. Now when we run this program, we're going to see John on the terminal, and there you go. Now in Python we can also use negative index. This is a feature that I personally have not seen in other programming languages. So if 0 represents the first element in this list, what do you think negative 1 represents? It represents the last element in this list. Let's verify. So let's run the program, and here is Mary. What about negative 2? That will represent the second element from the end of the list. So let's run the program, and here is Sam. Now we can also change an object at a given index. For example, let's say here we made a mistake and this John should not be spelled with an H. So we need to reset it. We type names of 0. Now we treat this like a regular variable. So we set it to a new value. We set it to John without an H. Now let's print out list, and here's our updated list. We can also select a range of values. For example, let's say our only interest is in the first 3 names. So over here we type square brackets, and here we need to type 2 indexes, a start index and an end index. Our start index is 0 because we want to start from here, and our end index is going to be 0. 2 plus 1, and it's going to be 3, so we add a colon 3. So Python is going to return all the elements from the start index up to the end index, but excluding the end index. So it is going to return the elements at index 0, 1, and 2. Take a look. Here are the first 3 names. And by the way, this expression does not modify our original list. It returns a new list. So right after we print this statement, if we print our original list, we can see that it's not changed. So this is how we use lists in Python. Earlier I told you that strings in Python are objects. Objects in programming are kind of like objects in the real world, like mobile phones, bicycles, remote controls of your TV, and so on. They have certain capabilities. So if we type a string here and we press dot, we can see all the functions or methods available in a string object in Python. Now, lists are also objects, so they have a bunch of methods for adding items or removing them, and so on. Let me show you. So, I'm going to declare a list of numbers. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, to add a new element at the end of this list, we can use the append method. So we type numbers that append, and here we type 6. Now let's print our list. So here's our updated list. Now, what if you want to insert a number somewhere in the middle or at the beginning? For that, we use the insert method. So we are going to call the insert method. Now on the top, go to the view menu and look at the parameter info. Look at the shortcut. On a Mac computer, it's Command and P. On Windows, it is probably Control and P. If we use this shortcut, we can see the values that this method expects. So the first value that this method expects is an index value, and the type of this value is an integer. So if I want to insert a value at the beginning of this list, I should pass 0 as the index of the first element. So let's pass 0. Now the second value is highlighted. So the second value is an object, and the type of this is t. That basically means this can be any type. We can pass a number, we can pass a boolean, we can pass a string, we can pass a list, or we can pass any object in Python. So I'm going to pass -1. Now let's run our program. We can see -1 appearing at the beginning of our list. We also have a method for removing items, so let's call remove3. Let's run the program. So 3 is gone. We only have 1, 2, 4, and 5. Now, if I want to remove all the items in the list, we can call the clear method. This method does not expect any values. So let's run our program, and our list is now empty. Now sometimes you want to know if a given item exists in our list or not. To do that, we use the in operator. So let's remove this line. Instead of printing our numbers list, I'm going to print an expression. 1 in numbers. So here we're using the in operator. We're checking to see if 1 is in the numbers list. So this is a Boolean expression. It returns a Boolean value. Take a look. So we get true. Obviously, if we search for a value that does not exist in this list, like 10, we get false. Now finally, there are times you want to know how many items you have in a list. To do that, we can use the built-in len function. So let's print len of numbers. So len is a built-in function, just like the print function. That is why it is highlighted as purple. It returns the number of elements in a list. Take a look. So we have 5 elements in this list.